Explain like I'm 5. Why is a Planck's length the smallest possible distance? It's a combination of several fundamental constants. Specifically the speed of light, Planck's constant, and the gravitational constant g. If you combine these three constants in a certain way, you get a length, a very, very small length. And that is the smallest length where light and gravity have the properties we see that they do. It's not known if it truly is the smallest scale, only that our laws of physics break down at scales that small. Fun fact: you are closer in size proximity to the observable universe than you are the Planck length. Our current understanding of the laws of physics break down at dimensions below Planck scale, so we classify that as the smallest measurable distance. Of course you can say half a Planck, but we really don't know what goes on at that scale. Here is my favorite way to visualize just how small a Planck length is. Theoretically you could fit more cubic meters into the known observable universe than you could fit cubic Planck lengths into a cubic meter. ELI5. Why can't you calculate Planck's length? Planck's length, too. Very few answers here at ELI5. This website will help you see exactly how insanely small a Planck length is. https://www.htwins.net/scale2/also. To answer your question, a Planck length isn't the smallest possible distance. There could be half of a Planck length. But as far as we know, it is impossible to measure anything smaller than a Planck length due to the size of not only everything used to measure, but everything known to exist in the universe. The Planck length is an emergent property of the laws of physics as we know them today. In other words, there are several pieces of experimental evidence that demonstrate the discretization of energy levels. They don't prove that the Planck length is the smallest distance. Rather, the theoretical physics we have which aligns with those experiments points to this being true. Regardless, I'm not sure if that counts, but there has been an excellent episode of PBS Space-Time dedicated to that very topic, and I feel like they take great care in being approachable even if you have no deeper knowledge of physics or math. https://u2.be/snp-gungit4. And now, what is the smallest current actively useful length? I don't get it. How can there be a smallest possible distance in this case? The Planck length is roughly the scale at which any possible particle smaller than that would have enough momentum density to significantly affect space-time and turn into a tiny black hole. Our current laws of physics cannot really handle that. It's only roughly that scale. Not exactly. The length where the Compton wavelength equals the Schwarzschild radius of a particle is actually sqrt 4 pi Planck lengths. I was always intrigued by a statement made on a PBS special I watched one time many years ago. At the time, this physicist was discussing the concept of time, and one theory that time may occur in discrete packets which he called chronons. At that time it was postulated as the amount of time a particle of light took to traverse the diameter of a hydrogen atom, about 10e-20 seconds. So fascinating. Saying it's impossible to measure something is the same as saying it can't affect reality. If it can't affect reality, does it really exist? It's not currently known for sure that we can't measure smaller, but current understanding of physics is not sufficient to do it. Basically, it's the shortest distance for which we have a ruler to measure. Things might be shorter than the Planck length, but we can't measure them accurately. So you are saying that our universe has a pixel density? For anyone understanding German, this is an excellent ELI5 for this topic in general. https www.youtube.com/watch V equals YFIHH 0 Newton meters 8 N4. So small the concept of space has little meaning. Think of position as an amount of energy in any given volume. Well, then make the volume so small that there isn't enough space to even measure the amount or conceptualize a quantity of energy in the way we typically measure, understand it. It's not really. It's just the length that results when you redefine all the fundamental measurements such that all the fundamental physical constants have a value of 1. It also happens to be really small such that quantum effects dominate. Our current understanding of physics starts to break down, etc. But to my knowledge there's nothing special about the Planck length such that physics works at greater than equals 1 Planck length and isn't at less than 1 Planck length. It isn't. When we talk about velocity, we can use meters per second or miles per hour. We can choose to define our measures such that the speed of light is 1 length per time, and choose Planck's constant to be 1 length squared, mass, time (-2), etc. In this system, 1 length is called a Planck length, and it's very tiny. It's not the smallest possible length. Are you really asking Reddit about reasoning for the fundamental properties of our universe? Either the creator made a decision towards the discreteness of time and space, in which case you can go and ask him, or it just happens to be that way. https en.wikipedia.org/wiki/find-tuned_universe. Remember, it's the limit to what we can measure because it's the limit of what we use to measure things. There can be a smaller distance in the universe. It's just not measurable by humans. At small enough scales, the fluctuations of gravitational field are so great that the idea of distance loses its meaning, since the metrics of space fluctuates too much, and is the time it takes for light to traverse that distance the shortest possible time slice? It's the smallest on paper. Theoretically, it was the same with many other Newtonian physics constants and equations, until quantum mechanics came along and proved that there's no such thing as fixed constants, or logic. Half a Planck's length is smaller. It's not the smallest possible distance. It's the smallest meaningful distance. Anything small than the Planck distance, the laws of obtains break down and we can't describe that. Space. Try-he question reminds me of Zeno's paradox. One cannot travel to the other side of a stadium, as to get there, he must first have to get halfway. To get there he must have first achieved half that distance, etc. It just means the concept of distance has no meaning at levels shorter than Planck length. You cannot differentiate between 2 points in space that are closer to each other than a Planck length. Surely Planck's width would be smaller? Because the universe is made of lumber by gnomes whose machinations are what we call physics. It is a theoretical limit because at sizes smaller than Planck length, our current models of physics begin to break down and produce nonsensical answers. It is not known if it represents a physical limit. Basically, you have a rule with 1/16 markings. That makes 1/16 of an inch a theoretical limit to your ability to measure things because below that you can't measure reliably. But that isn't a physical limitation. You can get a measuring stick with finer increments. It's the smallest because it's the smallest our current understanding allows. If you could cut an apple into pieces so small you couldn't see them anymore, you'd have pieces so fine you'd need a microscope to tell them apart. Planck's distance is like that. But for physics, if something were smaller than that, we'd need something we don't yet have to figure out what it is. We don't have a physics microscope for things smaller than that. Planck time and length have always fascinated me. From a layman's view, I think that Planck time is like the clock speed of the universe. Planck length is like the resolution. Combine them and it's like peeking in on the code for the simulation we call the universe. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe for more content.